The transport shuttle shook as it approached Station Nexus. Hana pressed her face against the small window and watched the massive structure grow larger with each passing second. The Galactic Defense Academy was nothing like the pictures she had studied back on Earth. It was huge beyond imagination, spinning slowly around a bright neutron star that painted everything in pale blue light. Hana felt her stomach twist with nervousness. She was 19 years old and about to become the first human ever to attend the most important military school in the galaxy. Her hands were sweating inside her simple Earth uniform, which looked plain compared to the fancy outfits she had seen other species wearing in the Academy videos. The shuttle docked with a soft bump. Hana grabbed her single bag and followed the other passengers toward the exit. Most of them were tall aliens with strange skin colors and extra arms or eyes. They spoke in languages that sounded like music or grinding metal. None of them paid any attention to the small human girl walking behind them. The station's main corridor was enormous. The ceiling stretched up so high that Hana could barely see it. Holographic signs floated in the air, showing directions in dozens of different alien languages. Earth Standard was listed at the very bottom in tiny letters. Hundreds of beings walked past her, some floating, others crawling on multiple legs, and a few that seemed to be made of living light. Hana followed the signs toward the Academy registration area. She tried not to stare at the other new students, but it was impossible not to notice how different they all were. A group of reptilian creatures stood near one wall, their scales shimmering with built-in technology. Nearby, several beings that looked like walking crystals were having a conversation that sounded like wind chimes. At the registration desk, a robot scanned the identification chip in Hana's hand. The machine beeped and displayed her information on a screen. Several alien students standing in line behind her started whispering to each other when they saw the word human appear on the display. "So you are the human," said a voice behind her. Hana turned around to see one of the crystal beings looking down at her. He was at least 7 feet tall and his body sparkled with inner light. "I am Cadet Thyros of the Catherian Empire. I have heard much about your species." "Nice to meet you," Hana said, trying to sound confident. "I am Hana from Earth." Thyros made a sound that might have been laughter. It sounded like breaking glass. "Yes, Earth. The little planet that only learned to travel between stars 50 years ago. Tell me, human, what makes your kind think they belong in a school for real warriors?" Other cadets had stopped to listen. Hana felt dozens of alien eyes staring at her. Her face grew hot with embarrassment, but she tried to keep her voice steady. "I passed all the entrance tests just like everyone else." "Did you?" Thyros asked. His crystalline features seemed to glow brighter. Or did the Academy Council simply decide they needed a token primitive species to show how inclusive they are? The whispers around them grew louder. Hana heard words in various languages that she did not understand, but the tone was clear. They were laughing at her. She wanted to say something smart back to Thyros, but her mind went blank. Instead, she just picked up her bag and walked away toward the dormitory section. The hallways of the academy were like nothing on Earth. The walls were made of some kind of smart metal that changed color as people walked past. Gravity was different too. Lighter than Earth normal, which made Hana feel like she might float away if she took too big a step. Her room was small but clean. It had a bed, a desk, and a window that showed the spinning stars outside. Hana sat on the bed and pulled out her communication device to call home. The signal took several minutes to reach Earth, but finally her sister Kim Jiwoo appeared on the screen. "Hana, you made it." Jiwoo's face was bright with excitement. "How is it? Are the other students nice? What does space food taste like?" Hana tried to smile, but she could not hide how she really felt. "It is different. The other cadets do not think I belong here. They think humans are too primitive for this place." Jiwoo's expression grew serious. "What did you tell them?" "Nothing good," Hana admitted. "I just walked away. Maybe they are right, Jiwoo. Maybe I'm not smart enough or strong enough for this." "Listen to me," Jiwoo said firmly. "Remember what Mom always told us? Humans might not be the biggest or the strongest, but we are good at figuring things out. We adapt. We find ways to solve problems that nobody else thinks of." Before Hana could answer, someone knocked on her door. She opened it to find a middle-aged human man in a military uniform. He had kind eyes and graying hair, and Hana felt a wave of relief at seeing another person from Earth. "Cadet Lee," the man said with a slight bow. I am Commander Park Do-hyun, your assigned mentor. May I come in? Hana quickly ended her call with Jiwoo and let Commander Park into her small room. He looked around and nodded approvingly. Not bad for academy quarters, he said. I have been living on alien stations for 15 years, and this is quite comfortable compared to some places. You are human, Hana said, then felt stupid for stating the obvious. Park smiled. Yes, I am one of the few humans currently serving in the Galactic Defense Force. When the Academy Council decided to accept their first human cadet, they asked me to help guide you through the experience. The other students think I only got accepted because the Academy wanted to look inclusive, Hana said quietly. Park sat down in the room's single chair and looked at her seriously. That may be partially true, he said, but you still had to pass the same tests as everyone else. Your scores were high enough to earn your place here, regardless of the politics involved. But I do not have scales or claws or crystal armor, Hana said. I cannot process information as fast as a computer or lift heavy objects with my mind. What can humans do that all these other species cannot do better? Park was quiet for a moment, thinking. Do you know how humans first tamed wolves on Earth? He asked. Not really. It was not by being stronger than wolves or faster than wolves. Humans learned to understand what wolves needed and wanted. They formed partnerships instead of trying to dominate through force. That ability to connect with other species, to see things from their point of view, is something humans do better than almost anyone else in the galaxy. Hana thought about this. But how will that help me in military training? This is a school for warriors, not diplomats. Sometimes the best warrior is the one who can avoid fighting in the first place, Park said. But you will learn that lesson in your own time. For now, just focus on doing your best in your classes. Show them what human determination looks like. After Park left, Hana looked out her window at the strange alien stars. Tomorrow would bring her first classes, her first chance to prove that humans belonged among the greatest military minds in the galaxy. She was scared, but she was also curious to see what challenges waited for her. The Academy computer announced lights out in 30 minutes. Hana changed into her sleeping clothes and got ready for bed. As she lay in the dark, she could hear strange sounds through the walls, alien languages, mechanical noises, and things that might have been music from species she had never heard of. She thought about what Jiwoo had said about humans being good at adapting and solving problems. She thought about Commander Park's story about wolves and partnerships. Maybe being different was not such a bad thing after all. But first, she had to survive tomorrow. Hana's first week at the academy was harder than anything she had ever experienced. Every morning started at dawn with physical training in the main gymnasium. The other cadets moved through the exercises like they had been born for war. The reptilian students had natural armor that protected them from impact. The crystal beings like Thyros could change their body density to become harder than steel, or lighter than air. Hana struggled to keep up. During combat simulations, she was knocked down again and again by opponents who were faster, stronger, and better equipped than any human could ever be. Her earth muscles ached constantly, and she often finished exercises long after everyone else had moved on to the next activity. Look at the human trying to fight, Thyros said loudly during one training session. He had just defeated 3 other cadets in a row without breaking his crystalline form. She moves like a baby animal that has not learned to walk properly. The other cadets laughed. Even some of the alien species who were usually quiet joined in the mockery. Hana felt her face turn red, but she kept trying to complete the exercise. She had learned early that complaining or crying only made things worse. Lieutenant Quendel, their tactical instructor, was a tall, insect-like being with 4 arms and compound eyes. She moved with perfect precision and spoke in a clicking voice that somehow managed to sound disappointed most of the time. During strategy classes, she would present complex battle scenarios that required split-second calculations and multidimensional thinking. The other cadets solved these problems quickly, their advanced brains processing hundreds of variables at once. Some species had evolved mathematical thinking that worked like living computers. Others had collective consciousness that let them share processing power with members of their kind back home. Hana had to work differently. She could not calculate probability curves in her head or access vast databases of tactical knowledge through genetic memory. Instead, she found herself watching the behavior patterns in the simulations, noticing small details that seemed unimportant but felt significant somehow. During one particularly difficult exercise, The class was divided into teams to defend against a simulated enemy attack. Hana was assigned to Thyros's squad, much to his obvious displeasure. The enemy forces were controlled by the Academy computer and designed to be nearly impossible to defeat using standard tactics. "Stay back and try not to interfere," Thyros told Hana as their team took positions. "This requires real strategic thinking, not primitive guessing." The simulation began with waves of enemy ships attacking their defensive position. Thyros and the other team members immediately began implementing complex mathematical strategies they had learned in class. Their coordinated defense was impressive to watch, like a dance of perfect military precision. But Hana noticed something the others missed. The enemy attack patterns had tiny variations that repeated every few minutes. It was not random like it was supposed to be. The computer was following some kind of behavioral program that had subtle rhythms to it, like the way animals moved when they were hunting. "The enemy commander is getting frustrated," Hana said quietly. "What are you talking about?" Thyros snapped without looking away from his tactical display. "It is a computer program. It does not have emotions," but Hana kept watching. The attack patterns were definitely changing in response to their defense, but not in a purely logical way. There was something almost emotional about how the simulated enemy was adapting its strategy. It reminded her of watching wildlife documentaries back on Earth, seeing how predators changed their hunting techniques when their prey proved difficult to catch. "Try leaving the eastern flank open," Hana suggested. "Make it look like we made a mistake." "Absolutely not," Thyros replied. "That would violate basic defensive principles." But their current strategy was not working either. The enemy forces were slowly overwhelming their position through superior numbers and firepower. In desperation, one of the other team members suggested they try Hana's idea. "Fine," Thyros said angrily. "When this fails, remember that the human caused our defeat." They pulled back from the eastern defensive position, making it appear like they had made an error in their formation. Just as Hana had predicted, the enemy forces immediately focused all their attention on what looked like a weak spot. This left other areas of the battlefield less defended. The team quickly moved to exploit these openings, striking at the enemy's flanks while their attention was focused elsewhere. Within minutes, they had achieved victory in a simulation that was supposed to be nearly impossible to win. The exercise ended and the classroom lights came back on. Lieutenant Quendall looked at the results with surprise, her compound eyes reflecting the data displays. "Interesting," she clicked. "Team 7 achieved victory using an approach that does not appear in any of our tactical databases. How did you identify this strategy?" Thyros stepped forward, his crystal form glowing with pride. "We used advanced probability analysis to predict enemy behavior patterns," he began, but Lieutenant Quendall was looking at Hana. "Cadet Lee, the suggestion to expose the eastern flank came from you, according to the audio recordings. Please explain your reasoning." Hana felt all eyes in the classroom focused on her. She tried to find words to explain what she had seen, but it was difficult to describe in military terms. "The enemy was acting like it was getting angry," she said slowly. "When we defended perfectly, it started making attacks that were not just logical but emotional somehow, like it wanted to prove it was stronger than us. So I thought if we gave it what looked like an easy target, it would focus too much on that and forget about other opportunities." The classroom was silent. Lieutenant Quendall's compound eyes shifted colors as she processed this information. "You treated the simulation like it was a living opponent with psychological motivations rather than a computer program following algorithms," she said. "Finally, yes, ma'am. That seemed more natural to me." Several cadets whispered to each other in their own languages. Thyros looked confused and slightly annoyed that his team had won because of human intuition rather than proper tactical analysis. After class, Commander Park found Hana in the cafeteria. She was sitting alone, eating food that tasted nothing like anything from Earth. "I heard about your victory in Lieutenant Quendall's simulation," he said, sitting down across from her. "Thyros says it was just luck," Hana replied. "Was it?" Hana thought about this question. "I do not think so. The simulation felt alive to me. I know that sounds strange, but I could sense patterns in how it was behaving, like it had a personality." Park nodded slowly. "Humans spent millions of years learning to read the behavior of other animals. We had to understand predators to avoid them and understand prey to hunt them. Most other species evolved past that need long ago, but humans still have those instincts. Is that useful in space combat? It might be more useful than you think, Park said. The galaxy is full of intelligence types that our allies do not fully understand. Someday, the ability to read behavior and emotions might be exactly what saves lives. That evening, Hana practiced in the empty training rooms. She was still the weakest cadet physically, and her academic scores were barely above the minimum requirements. But something had changed after the simulation victory. She felt like maybe she had found something uniquely human that could be valuable after all. The next morning brought new challenges and more opportunities for her classmates to prove their superiority. But Hana no longer felt completely hopeless. She was beginning to understand that being different might be more important than being better. 3 months into her training, Hana had found her place at the academy. She was still ranked in the bottom third of her class, but her strange victories in tactical simulations had earned her a small amount of respect from some instructors. Thyros and his followers still mocked her regularly, but their jokes felt less sharp than before. Everything changed on a Tuesday morning during routine deep space monitoring exercises. The Academy's sensor arrays detected something unusual near the edge of the star system. It was a massive energy signature unlike anything in their databases, drifting slowly through the darkness between planets. Commander Vextar, the Reptilian Academy Commandant, called an emergency assembly. All cadets and instructors gathered in the main auditorium as holographic displays showed the mysterious object floating in space. Long-range scans indicate this is an ancient vessel of unknown origin, Commander Vextar announced, his scaled skin reflecting the blue light from the displays. The energy readings suggest technology that predates most known civilizations. We are sending a research team to investigate. The research ship launched within hours, carrying several senior instructors and a team of advanced cadets including Thyros. Hana watched from the Academy's observation deck as the small vessel disappeared into hyperspace. She felt a strange uneasiness in her stomach, though she could not explain why. The research team's first reports were routine. The ancient vessel appeared to be a derelict, possibly thousands of years old. Its hull was made from materials that their scanners could barely identify. There were no signs of life aboard, but the energy readings grew stronger as they approached. Lieutenant Quendall was monitoring communications in the Academy's command center when the situation changed dramatically. The research team's routine reports suddenly became urgent transmissions filled with fear and confusion. "Something is moving inside the ship," came the voice of the team leader through crackling static. "The energy readings are increasing rapidly. We think we may have triggered some kind of awakening sequence." The last transmission from the research vessel was a desperate scream that cut off in the middle of a word. Then there was only silence. Commander Vextar immediately ordered emergency protocols. The Academy's defensive systems activated, energy shields powered up, and all civilian personnel began evacuation procedures. But nobody knew what they were preparing to fight. The answer came 6 hours later when the Academy's long-range sensors detected something moving toward them at incredible speed. It was not the research ship. The vessel that had been investigating the ancient derelict was now a lifeless hulk, drifting in space. Something else was coming toward Station Nexus, and it was moving in ways that defied the laws of physics. "All cadets report to emergency stations," announced the Academy's computer system. "This is not a drill. Unknown hostile approaching station perimeter." Hana ran to her assigned position in the lower levels of the Academy. Around her, alien cadets moved with efficient panic, their training taking over even as fear showed in their various expressions. Some species changed colors when stressed, others made unconscious sounds, and a few began leaking chemical signals that made the air smell strange. The creature that had emerged from the ancient vessel was unlike anything in galactic records. It appeared on the Academy's sensors as a shifting mass of dark energy, sometimes solid and sometimes translucent like a shadow. It moved through space without any visible means of propulsion, flowing between dimensions in ways that made the sensor readings flicker and change. "It is a void stalker," whispered an elderly instructor who had been reviewing ancient databases. "I thought they were just legends." The stories about void stalkers were scattered and incomplete, preserved only in the oldest records of the most ancient civilizations. They were described as apex predators from the early days of galactic history, creatures of living shadow and energy that had destroyed entire star systems before mysteriously disappearing eons ago. According to the fragments of information that survived, Void stalkers could phase through solid matter like ghosts and fed on the life force of other beings. They were described as highly intelligent, but completely alien in their thinking, operating by rules that no other species could understand or predict. The creature reached the Academy's outer defensive perimeter and began its attack. Energy weapons fired automatically from the station's defensive systems, but the beams passed harmlessly through the Void Stalker's shifting form. Physical barriers meant nothing to a being that could exist partially outside normal space. The first casualties came from the outer sections of the Academy. Personnel monitoring the defensive systems simply collapsed at their stations. Their life force drained away in seconds. The creature moved through the station's corridors like flowing darkness, leaving a trail of unconscious or dead beings behind it. Panic spread through the Academy as conventional defenses proved completely useless. The Void Stalker seemed to be playing with them, demonstrating its power while slowly making its way toward the more populated sections of the station. Commander Vextar ordered a complete evacuation, but the process was chaotic and slow. Many of the evacuation shuttles were targeted by the creature before they could escape to hyperspace. It seemed to sense any attempt to flee, and would phase through space to drain the life force from escaping personnel. In the Academy's command center, the most brilliant tactical minds in the galaxy worked desperately to find some weakness in the creature's abilities. They analyzed every ancient record they could find, searching for any mention of successful resistance against Void Stalkers. Every historical account ends the same way, reported Lieutenant Quendal, her compound eyes dim with exhaustion. Complete destruction of the defending civilization. No conventional weapons or strategies have ever been effective. Thyros led a group of senior cadets in preparing the Academy's most advanced combat equipment. Their crystalline battlesuits were enhanced with every defensive system known to galactic science. Energy shields, plasma weapons, gravitational disruptors, and quantum phase manipulators were all brought online. We will show this ancient creature what modern military technology can accomplish, Thyros declared, his crystal form glowing with determination. Our ancestors may have failed, but we have evolved beyond their limitations. Hana watched the preparations from her emergency station in the lower levels. She could feel the creature's presence growing stronger as it moved through the Academy, like a cold wind that touched something deeper than physical sensation. The other cadets around her were following evacuation procedures, but Hana found herself thinking about the strange behavior patterns she had noticed in tactical simulations. It is not just hunting randomly, she said to herself, studying the sensor readings on a nearby display. There is a purpose to how it moves. But nobody was listening to the human cadets' observations. The Academy's best minds were focused on weapons and escape plans, not on trying to understand the creature's motivations. They saw the Void Stalker as a force of nature to be opposed or avoided, not as an intelligence that might be operating according to rules they could learn to interpret. The creature continued its advance through the Academy, growing stronger with each life force it consumed. Time was running out for everyone aboard Station Nexus, and conventional wisdom offered no hope for survival. But Hana was beginning to suspect that conventional wisdom might be exactly the wrong approach for dealing with something this ancient and alien. She thought about Commander Park's lessons about human adaptability and the importance of understanding rather than simply opposing as evacuation alarms echoed through the corridors, and the Void Stalker drew closer to the Academy's core. Hana realized that someone would need to try a completely different approach. The question was whether anyone would be willing to listen to ideas from the human cadet who barely belonged at the Academy in the first place. The Academy's most advanced weapons proved completely useless against the Void Stalker. High-energy plasma cannons fired streams of superheated particles that simply passed through the creature's shadowy form without causing any damage. Gravitational disruptors that could tear apart asteroids had no effect on a being that seemed to exist partially outside normal space and time. Commander Vextar stood in the command center watching his defensive systems fail one after another. His reptilian features showed the strain of commanding a battle against an enemy that followed no rules he understood. Every tactical manual in the galactic military databases assumed that opponents would be bound by the same physical laws as everyone else. "Sir, the creature has reached Section 7, reported a communications officer. All personnel in that area have been evacuated or The officer's voice trailed off rather than say the word killed. The evacuation was proceeding slowly and badly. The Void Stalker seemed to sense every attempt to escape, and would phase through the station's hull to attack fleeing shuttles. Several evacuation vessels had already been found drifting in space, their crews drained of life force. Lieutenant Quendall led the Academy's tactical analysis team in a desperate search for any weakness in the creature's abilities. They had accessed every database in galactic civilization, studying ancient records and theoretical xenobiology texts for any clue about how previous civilizations had dealt with Void Stalkers. "The pattern is always the same," she reported to Commander Vextar. "Every civilization that encountered these creatures was completely destroyed. There are no records of successful resistance or communication attempts." "There must be something," the commander insisted. "No creature is completely invincible." But the evidence suggested otherwise. The ancient records described Void Stalkers as beings of pure predatory instinct, operating according to alien logic that no other species had ever been able to understand. They consumed life force not just for survival, but apparently for pleasure, treating entire civilizations like hunting grounds. Meanwhile, Thyros and his team of senior cadets prepared for direct combat. They wore the Academy's most advanced battle suits, powered armor that enhanced strength and speed while providing multiple layers of protection. Each suit was equipped with enough firepower to level a small city. "We represent the pinnacle of galactic military evolution," Thyros announced to his team. "Our technology is thousands of years more advanced than the civilizations that fell to these creatures. We will succeed where our primitive ancestors failed." The assault team moved through the Academy's corridors toward the creature's last known position. Their sensors showed the Void Stalker in the station's central hub, apparently resting after consuming the life force of several more personnel. It seemed to be waiting for something, though none of them could guess what. "Remember, maintain formation and focus fire," Thyros ordered as they approached the hub. "Overwhelming force applied with precision will overcome any defense." They found the Void Stalker in the main corridor, a shifting mass of darkness that seemed to absorb light from the surrounding area. Up close, it was even more terrifying than the sensor readings had suggested. Reality itself appeared unstable around the creature, with strange distortions in space that made it difficult to look at directly. "Open fire," Thyros commanded. The assault team unleashed everything they had. Plasma beams, particle weapons, sonic disruptors, and quantum phase cannons all fired simultaneously. The corridor filled with energy and light as the most powerful weapons in galactic civilization focused on a single target. For a moment, it seemed like the attack might be working. The Void Stalker's form flickered and wavered under the assault. But then something changed. Instead of being damaged by the weapon's fire, the creature seemed to be absorbing the energy and growing stronger. The Void Stalker expanded suddenly, its dark form reaching out to envelop the nearest cadet. The young alien's battlesuit provided no protection at all as the creature drained his life force in seconds. His crystalline structure went completely dark before he collapsed to the floor. "Fall back," Thyros shouted, but it was too late. The creature was moving faster now, energized by the attack and the life force it had just consumed. 2 more cadets fell before the survivors could retreat to a safe distance. Thyros barely escaped, his own crystalline structure permanently dimmed from his brief contact with the creature. The assault had not only failed, but had actually made the Void Stalker more dangerous. In the command center, the failure of the direct assault created despair among the Academy's leadership. If their most advanced weapons and tactics could not even slow the creature down, what hope did they have? "All remaining personnel to evacuation stations," Commander Vextar ordered. "We are abandoning the Academy." But even evacuation was becoming impossible. The Void Stalker had learned the layout of the station and was now actively hunting the remaining inhabitants. It moved through walls and floors like they were made of air, appearing anywhere it chose without warning. Hana found herself in an emergency shelter with about 20 other cadets from various species. They huddled together in the darkened room, listening to the sounds of the creature moving through nearby corridors. Some of the younger cadets were crying in their own species' ways, making sounds that ranged from musical keening to mechanical buzzing. "Why is it doing this?" whispered one of the reptilian cadets. "What does it want from us?" "It is a predator," replied another. "Predators do not need reasons beyond hunger." But Hana was not convinced. She had been studying the creature's movement patterns through the academy, tracking its path on her portable datapad. There was definitely a purpose to its actions, but not the simple hunting behavior that everyone assumed. "It is not just feeding," she said quietly. "Look at the pattern of its movements." A few of the other cadets gathered around her datapad, though most ignored her as usual. Hana traced the creature's path through the academy with her finger. "See? It could have consumed everyone in the outer sections before moving deeper into the station, but instead it left some areas completely untouched while focusing on others. And when Thyrus's team attacked it, the creature did not just defend itself. It made sure to demonstrate its superiority first." "What are you suggesting?" asked one of the cadets. "I think it is trying to establish dominance," Hana said. "Like pack animals back on Earth, the attacks are not random hunting. They are displays of power designed to show us our place in the hierarchy." The other cadets looked skeptical. The idea that a creature of such obvious power would need to establish dominance seemed ridiculous when it could simply kill everyone without effort. But Hana remembered Commander Park's lessons about human evolution and the importance of understanding animal behavior. She thought about wolves and lions and all the other predators that humans had learned to coexist with over millions of years of evolution. "Every social predator has rules," she said. "Even the most dangerous ones can be communicated with if you understand what they are trying to accomplish." "You want to communicate with that thing?" one cadet asked in horror. Before Hana could answer, the lights in their shelter went out. Through the walls, they could hear the sound of the Void Stalker moving closer, its presence making the air itself feel cold and wrong. The creature had found them. In minutes, maybe seconds, it would phase through the walls and drain the life force from everyone in the room. The Academy's best minds had failed to find a solution, and conventional military wisdom offered no hope. But Hana was beginning to think that conventional wisdom was exactly the problem. Everyone was treating the Void Stalker like a force of nature to be opposed or escaped from. Nobody had tried to understand it as an intelligent being, operating according to its own social rules. As the creature's presence grew stronger outside their shelter, Hana realized that someone would have to try a completely different approach. And since nobody was listening to the human cadet's theories anyway, she might be the only one willing to test whether understanding could succeed where force had failed. The emergency shelter grew colder as the Void Stalker approached. Through the walls, everyone could feel its alien presence like pressure in their bones. The other cadets pressed against the back wall as far from the entrance as possible. Some were praying in their native languages, others had simply frozen with terror. Hana stood up and walked toward the door. "What are you doing?" hissed one of the reptilian cadets. "Stay back." "Someone has to try something different," Hana said quietly. She placed her hand on the door controls. "All the weapons and defenses have failed. Maybe it is time to try understanding instead of fighting. You will get us all killed." "We are going to die anyway if nothing changes," Hana replied. "At least this way someone will learn something useful." Before anyone could stop her, she opened the door and stepped into the corridor. The other cadets' horrified whispers followed her, but she did not look back. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears, but she forced herself to walk steadily toward where the creature waited. The Void Stalker was even more terrifying up close than she had imagined. It filled the entire width of the corridor, a shifting mass of darkness that seemed to absorb light from the emergency lamps along the walls. Looking at it directly made her eyes water and her head ache, as if her brain was not designed to process what she was seeing. But Hana did not run. Instead, she stopped about 10 feet away from the creature and slowly sat down on the floor. She made herself as small and non-threatening as possible, keeping her hands visible and her movements careful and deliberate. The Void Stalker paused. Its flowing form shifted and changed as if it was trying to understand this unexpected behavior. Every other being it had encountered had either fled in terror or attacked with desperate violence. This small human was doing neither. Hana thought about everything Commander Park had taught her about animal behavior. She remembered documentaries about wolves and lions, about how humans had learned to coexist with dangerous predators by understanding their social structures, rather than simply fearing their power. She took slow, deep breaths and tried to project calm submission rather than challenging dominance. She avoided direct eye contact, which most predators interpreted as a threat, but she did not cower either. Instead, she maintained the kind of respectful alertness that showed awareness without aggression. The creature moved closer, its dark form flowing across the floor like liquid shadow. Up close, Hana could feel the wrongness of its presence even more strongly. It was like standing next to something that existed partially outside normal reality, making the air around it feel cold and electric. But she did not flinch. Instead, she began to speak in a soft, steady voice. "I know you can understand me," she said. "You are too intelligent to be just a mindless predator. Everything you have done shows planning and purpose. You are trying to communicate something, but we have not been listening the right way." The Voidstalker's movement slowed. Its shifting form became more stable, as if it was focusing its attention on the small human sitting before it. Hana continued speaking, her voice growing more confident as she felt the creature's hostile energy beginning to change. "You are not from this time or place. You have been alone for so long that you have forgotten how to interact with other intelligent beings, but you remember the old ways when there were others like you." She paused, watching for any reaction. The creature's form was definitely more stable now, and she could sense something that might have been curiosity replacing the pure predatory hunger she had felt before. "You are trying to establish pack order," Hana said. "That is why you demonstrated your power instead of just killing everyone immediately. You want us to understand our place in relation to you. You want recognition, not just fear." The Voidstalker moved even closer until Hana could feel the strange energy that surrounded it, making her skin tingle. But instead of draining her life force, the creature seemed to be studying her with an intelligence that was vast and alien, but definitely present. Hana slowly extended one hand toward the creature, palm up in a gesture of offering rather than threat. "You have been alone for eons, but you do not have to be alone anymore. Humans understand pack dynamics. We know how to acknowledge a superior without losing ourselves in the process." For a moment that felt like eternity, nothing happened. Then the Voidstalker's form began to change. The chaotic darkness condensed into something more solid and structured. It was still clearly alien and dangerous, but now it had a definite shape that suggested intelligence and purpose rather than mere hunger. A tendril of dark energy reached out from the creature and touched Hana's extended hand. She felt a shock of alien consciousness that was overwhelming in its depth and complexity. Images flashed through her mind of ancient civilizations and long-dead stars, of endless loneliness and the desperate need for connection that all intelligent beings shared. The creature was not evil or mindlessly destructive. It was old beyond imagination, and had been alone for so long that it had forgotten how to interact with other beings without destroying them. The attacks on the Academy were not malicious but clumsy attempts at communication by a being that operated on a completely different scale of existence. Through the mental connection, Hana sensed the creature's confusion and growing excitement. It had not encountered another being capable of understanding its need for social connection in millions of years. The humans were different from the other species it had met, somehow able to bridge the gap between its alien nature and their own need for pack structure. Gradually, the Voidstalker's aggressive energy transformed into something that could almost be described as protectiveness. It had found something it thought was lost forever, another intelligence that could acknowledge its dominance while still maintaining its own identity. The mental connection faded, leaving Hana exhausted but alive. The creature had withdrawn to a respectful distance, its form now stable and clearly non-threatening. It began to emit patterns of energy that felt like communication, though not in any language that galactic civilization would recognize. But Hana understood. The Voidstalker was acknowledging her as its interpreter, the bridge between its ancient consciousness and the younger species that filled the galaxy. It would protect rather than hunt, guide rather than destroy, as long as the connection between them remained strong. From the emergency shelter, the other cadets emerged cautiously. They stared in amazement as the creature that had terrorized the entire academy now waited calmly beside the human cadet who had somehow achieved the impossible. "How?" whispered Thyros, his crystalline form still dimmed from his earlier encounter with the creature. "I listened," Hana said simply. Everyone else was trying to fight or run, but sometimes the strongest thing you can do is try to understand. The Voidstalker made a sound that might have been agreement, a harmonic vibration that resonated through the station's structure. It was no longer the galaxy's most feared predator. It was something far more valuable, a guardian that had finally found a pack worth protecting. News of Lee Hana's impossible achievement spread through the academy, faster than the emergency communication systems could carry it. Within hours, every cadet and instructor knew that the human girl who had been mocked and dismissed had accomplished something that the galaxy's greatest military minds had deemed impossible. The sight of Hana calmly communicating with the Void Stalker was broadcast throughout the station via security feeds. Beings who had spent months treating her as an inferior primitive now watched in stunned silence as she demonstrated abilities they had not even known existed. Commander Vextar arrived at the scene with a team of senior officers, expecting to find either a massacre or an empty corridor. Instead, he discovered the Academy's most dangerous threat, peacefully coexisting with the cadet he had privately doubted should have been admitted in the first place. "Cadet Lee," he said carefully, his reptilian voice showing unusual respect. "Can you explain what has happened here?" Hana looked up from where she sat beside the Void Stalker. The creature's form had stabilized into something that resembled a large cat made of flowing shadow, though its eyes held intelligence far beyond any animal. "It was never trying to destroy the Academy," she explained. "It was trying to communicate. The attacks were dominance displays, like how wolves establish pack order. It needed to know that we understood its strength before it could trust us." Lieutenant Quendal approached cautiously, her compound eyes reflecting amazement. "The creature is no longer hostile?" "It never was really," Hana said. "It was confused and lonely. Imagine being the last of your kind for millions of years, then suddenly finding a galaxy full of intelligent life that only responds to your presence with fear or violence." The Void Stalker made a soft harmonic sound that resonated through the station's structure. Though the sound was alien, somehow everyone present understood it as agreement and perhaps gratitude. Over the following days, word of the event reached the highest levels of galactic government. Xenopsychologists and military strategists from dozens of species requested permission to study what had happened at the Academy. The idea that one of the galaxy's most feared legendary creatures could be communicated with challenged fundamental assumptions about interspecies relations. Thyros was among the first to approach Hana with a formal apology. His crystalline structure was slowly returning to its normal brightness, but the experience had clearly changed him. "I was wrong about humans," he said, his voice lacking its usual arrogance. "I thought strength could only come from superior technology or natural advantages. I did not understand that wisdom could be its own form of power." "You were not completely wrong," Hana replied. "Your people's knowledge and abilities are impressive, but maybe different kinds of strength can work together instead of competing." The Academy's curriculum was restructured to include new courses on xenopsychology and interspecies communication, with humans being specifically recruited as instructors. What had begun as a diversity initiative was now recognized as identifying crucial capabilities that galactic civilization had been missing. Commander Park arrived at the Academy for Hana's graduation ceremony, his face showing pride that he tried to keep professional. "You have done something remarkable," he told her. "You have shown the galaxy that humans belong here not as junior partners, but as essential contributors to galactic peace." "I just tried to understand instead of fight," Hana said. "Any human could have done the same thing." "Perhaps," Park replied, "but you were the one who chose to try when everyone else had given up. That kind of courage is rare in any species." The graduation ceremony was unlike any in the Academy's history. Representatives from major galactic civilizations attended to witness the commissioning of the human cadet, who had revolutionized their understanding of apex predator psychology. The Void Stalker itself attended, its massive form coiled peacefully in the ceremony hall like a living shadow that radiated protective energy. When Hana's name was called to receive her commission, the applause came from beings who had once questioned whether humans deserved a place among the stars. Now they understood that humanity's evolutionary path had given them skills that complemented, rather than competed with the abilities of other species. "Cadet Lee Hana," Commander Vexitar announced, "you are hereby commissioned as a lieutenant in the Galactic Defense Force. With specialization in xenopsychology and interspecies relations, your first assignment will be to establish protocols for communication with previously hostile or unknown intelligent entities." As Hana accepted her commission, She felt the mental touch of the Void Stalker's consciousness, a warm presence that conveyed approval and continued partnership. The creature had chosen to remain dormant most of the time, but it would be available to help protect human colonies and serve as a bridge between ancient powers and modern civilization. Kim Ji-woo watched the ceremony from Earth via quantum communication link, tears of pride streaming down her face. Her sister had not just survived the Academy's challenges but had transformed the entire galactic understanding of what it meant to be strong. Lieutenant Quendal approached Hana after the ceremony. "I owe you an apology," the insectoid instructor said. "I doubted whether human intuition could match analytical processing power. I now understand that different types of intelligence can achieve results that pure logic cannot." "Thank you," Hana replied. "But I think the real lesson is that we all have something unique to contribute. Humans are good at understanding emotions and building connections, but we still need your analytical abilities and Thyros's strategic thinking to solve complex problems." In the months that followed, Hana's approach to interspecies relations became standard training throughout the Galactic Defense Force. Her methods were used successfully in first-contact situations with 3 previously unknown civilizations, preventing conflicts that traditional military approaches might have escalated. The Void Stalker became a guardian of the Outer Rim territories, protecting human colonies and trade routes from genuine threats while serving as proof that even the most dangerous beings could become allies when approached with understanding rather than fear. Hana's final Academy report became required reading for all military officers. In it, she wrote, "Humans may not be the strongest or smartest species in the galaxy, but our evolution alongside dangerous predators taught us something valuable. We learned that survival often depends not on defeating your enemies, but on understanding them well enough to turn them into allies." 2 years later, when Hana received her promotion to captain and command of the 1st Interspecies Communication Corps, she stood once again on the observation deck where she had first felt so small and out of place. But now she understood that being different was not a weakness to overcome. It was humanity's greatest strength. The stars outside looked the same as they had on her first day at the Academy, but everything else had changed. Humans were no longer seen as primitive newcomers to galactic civilization. They were recognized as essential partners whose unique perspectives and abilities made the entire galaxy safer and more united. And in the depths of space, ancient powers that had slumbered for eons began to stir, drawn by the knowledge that at last there was a species capable of building bridges instead of walls, understanding instead of conquest. The galaxy had found its translators, and the conversation was just beginning.